Top of the morning to you, and welcome to Game of Thrones Season 3, Episode 6 review, The Climb. Alright, false Irish accent aside, welcome to the Game of Thrones reviews. Before I get this review started, however, I do have a couple of things which I want to address shortly, and please bear with me. First off, a couple of announcements about my channel. I had intended to do a video regarding the passing of Slayer guitarist Jeff Hanneman on Friday. For those of you who don't listen to heavy metal, Slayer is a band that I've loved for a long time. Kind of lost interest in them with the last couple of albums as the years have gone by, but I still respected what they did beforehand. Unfortunately, their guitarist Hanneman passed away at the age of 49 on Friday due to complications of liver failure, and I'd like to take this opportunity to say that I will truly miss him. The world of music is a sadder place for his loss, and for the fact that I just wish the best for all of his family, friends, people that worked with him, and for the other Slayer fans out there in general. And it's not really a lot that I could say to that. Just truly going to miss his music. The other thing which I would like to address is something that a lesson that was kind of reinforced for me tonight, and I kind of talked about this with Kayla before I sat down to do this review. I will be making a video upon this further sometime in the next weekend or two about people and their expectations of something based upon source material. This episode tonight in particular did something that really set me off, and it set a lot of other Game of Thrones fans off too, or at least ones who have read the Song of Ice and Fire books. There's this ideal that people have preconceptions of something before it hits the screen in some form or another, and if it's not as accurate as they would like it to be, there's a huge backlash which follows. There are a lot of examples of this, particularly among the anime community, to which I'm not too deeply involved with, but people who are especially fans of the big three, Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece in particular, are extremely volatile, or the fans who take themselves to the extreme, and it has ushered in a just an obsessive backlash among people, and this is something that I really would like to address in a video. Now, in terms of this, when I said that it included myself, basically there was something that happened in this episode tonight, to which there are usually points where I try not to compare the books, but I usually wind up doing it anyway, and it was a huge what the hell moment that just sprang up and made me immensely upset. Talked with Kayla about this. She was kind of taken aback by it, and she had said something about that she had to cut ties with the books for this series, and this is something that I have to retake into account for myself. Now, I've said in the past with certain adaptations that you cannot do everything 100%. Certainly with The Hobbit, this is also something in the line of A Song of Ice and Fire that I had problems with in this episode tonight. Stories in the past have kind of upset me that they haven't stuck with the source material as well as they should. Usually I kind of understood that they could not do everything in general, but that there should be at least a 60% faithful adaptation of something. And I made peace with that for True Blood, and I made peace with that for The Walking Dead. However, the differences in between those two stories and The Song of Ice and Fire is that I had read The Song of Ice and Fire a few years before the show actually got down into production and made its way to HBO. And this is kind of something that I was guilty of, and really this episode kind of unintentionally brought in reinforcement of this lesson that I need to learn as a fan of this series, and something that a lot of other people could do well with trying to think about in the future as well with something that they're looking forward to. But I will talk about that a little bit more in the future as it comes. Now, after my rambling, I am 5 minutes into this video. Let's get down to what you came here for. This is the episode Decline. Now, in terms of the episodes which have come thus far this season, this episode has certainly picked up. This episode was good. It hasn't been as good as the past 4 episodes, I say, but it's still got some good stuff going on in it. Let's go down the list and address everything which comes up. So let's start with the petty stuff first. Now, we open up this episode with Sam and Gilly. Since the episode before last, they had made the escape from Crasher's Keep after the infighting had broke out among the Crows, and Crasher was taken out in the course of it, and Commander Mormont was taken out as well. What ensued is that Gilly, her newborn, and Sam are heading somewhere. We're not sure which, but we have a small 3-minute time with them, which they're getting to know each other. They've kind of bonded a little bit, and Gilly has shown that she is not as entirely naive as we thought that she is. Now, she's still shy about the ways of the world a little bit, but she kind of recognizes Sam as a highborn child, and kind of shows with him it's not exactly something that he could keep up his sleeve. This is especially evident when she tutors him that throwing too much wood onto a fire will not help it burn any better. And it's just a nice moment in between them, but really it doesn't amount to much. It's just, kind of reminding us that they're there and that they will perhaps play a role that is important in some way in the future. Also, what is brought up in this as well, I need to talk about. I'm just kind of skipping all over the place. I'm going to kind of build this up from the least amount of time to the most amount of time that eats up this stuff. With one of the biggest, actually 2 of the biggest scenes in this making it somewhere towards the end. Let's go to Robb Stark, who is with Caitlin, and they're meeting with 3 of Walder Frey's boys, and we will call them also Walder because all of Walder's children have the name of Walder. If they're boys, they're Walder. If they're girls, they're Walda. Basically, they're trying to reach a compromise here. Now, Robb has unfortunately made a very naive mistake last episode about needing to go to the twins to try and get allies in the frays after they lost the Karstarks when Robb executed Rickard Karstark. Now, in the course of this, it's kind of brought up that, we need something to make this right, and Robb is kind of having to play his father. Again, as I said from the last episode, there are some evidences that clearly Robb is his father's son, and there's kind of this dangerous route which is still being led out that you're trying to do something honorable, but honor only gets you one place. And it is in the course of this that the deal is struck that Edmure Tully, who is Robb's uncle and Caitlyn's brother, will be married to one of Walder's daughters as one of the concessions. He's not happy about this, but they have to sit there and compare the greater good in things. Now, a lot of people, at least according to the old gods, is that you only marry someone you love. But, however, they also have to consider the fact that, hey, a lot of people, especially in highborn places, have not had the privilege of being able to choose who they love and who they marry. Well, you can choose who you love, but you can't choose who you marry. It's kind of like you can't pick your family, but you certainly can pick your friends. And this is kind of something which is dumped on Lord Tully's shoulders, and he kind of has to accept what the greater good could be out of all this. Now, again, this kind of reinforces, unfortunately, Robb is trying to do something to make amends, but it's not really one of the smartest decisions that he's made, and quite assured, whether you read the books or not, this is something that's probably going to come back and bite him in the ass. This is not a really smart decision to be making. We cut away from that. We go to Bran Stark with Asha and Mira Reed, who are squabbling over who can skin rabbits better. Now, Bran has been awake. He's sitting down. Jojen Reed is dreaming, and there's actually a point that comes up where he's having a bit of a seizure, and manages to tell Bran that he sees his brother surrounded by enemies, and it places a bit of worry for Bran for his brother. But Bran goes and put his foot down. Kind of has to step up, and he's sick of these women bitching at each other. And finally, he's had enough of it, and he tells them both to shut up and get along. We've got somewhere we got to be, and we can't have this infighting in this group. We need to stand together, or we're going to stand apart. And hey, from the mouth of the babes. It's kind of something that I like about this boy. Also, another aspect that he is his father's son, and that there is a reason that the Starks are respected, and he does have enough of his father's authority in him. And plus for the fact that a man who's stuck in between two arguing women can only take so much bullshit, has to put their foot down and just say, hey, I ain't going to put up with this crap. So there's a truce stuck in between them. Probably not a solid truce. They don't have to like each other, but they certainly respect each other. And that's an interesting scene. Then we cut along to Jon Snow at the top of the wall. Now, I know Tormund is with this group, the big red-headed bastard. Not a bastard, but just a big motherfucker. The husband of bears is with Ygritte and Jon, although I do think Ygritte needs to go by a different name, which I will come to shortly. And we also have someone who I assumed was Rattleshirt, but might be Longspear. I don't know who this guy is. Again, it's kind of one of the downsides of the books that I have to address is the fact that we only have so much time to show certain things in here, and I have kind of lost track about who's who a lot of times. I think Longspear has been put together with somebody else in this character. For what it is right now, I'm going to refer to him as Longspear. And also for the fact that even with the Tyrell boy, Loras, who is basically mostly Loras, who has been combined with Willis, who is more of the suitor for Sansa Stark in the story. But we'll also get to that later. Basically, Tormund tells Jon, hey, just to remind you, I want you to make sure where we stand about where we're going. And puts him in his place. And this is the episode where we get probably the best part of Jon Snow. It sucks that it fucking took 6 episodes into the season before we got something even remotely interesting about Jon Snow. Never mind about what happened last time. I enjoyed seeing Ygritte's ass, but the sex scene, it happened, it was kind of pointless, at least in my opinion. But, however, it is further reinforced as well, besides the fact that, Jon is trying to keep up the pretense. Unfortunately, the further developments in between him and Ygritte is that she has come to actually love him, and he's come to love her in a way. In a twofold sense, this works. One, because the wildlings live such hazardous lives up there in the wall. And the fact that, they're living from one day to the next and just all this intense stuff is going on around them, it's believable, even though this is kind of television show's logic, that these two would find comfort in each other. May not be love, it may just be more of the hormones, but the fact is that these two do have an affection for one another. And that's kind of reinforced here. This works in a way, in that idea. Now here's the downside of that, which comes up in 2 problems. Now one is that Ygritte has figured out that Jon is keeping up a pretense. He's still loyal to the Crows. Even though he's broken his oath to the Night's Watch that he will not lay with a woman, for all intents and purposes, the things that he's doing in this role as a double agent, she's seen through it, and there's kind of this point to where he just can't go back to who he was before that. Again, kind of taking on with the Stark boys, there is this idea that he's clinging to his father in some ways, and he's kind of repeating his mistakes. And while this is going on in this episode, the idea of the climb is that our foursome feature a literal climb up the top of the wall in order to get to Castle Black. The other thing which I forgot to mention too, with the downside of Egret's relationship with John, is the threat that she makes to him at the end of, which was completely out of character, regardless of whether you read the stories or not. The fact is that she makes a point to where she promises not to sell him out, and he makes a promise not to sell her out. But however, she veils a promise about that too, and it's not a threat; it's a promise. She's been kissed by fire. Don't fuck with an angry redheaded woman, because she threatened to cutting his dick off and wearing it around her neck as a necklace, which was just completely out of character for me and made me cringe. Just made my hair stand up on the end of my neck, and I just sat cross-legged for the rest of this episode. This really put me on issues here, and even I talked with Kayla about this, and that was just completely out of character for her. As far as I'm concerned, Egret showed up here in guise, but she has Lorena Bobbitt playing her. And it was something that really just kind of a downside to it. And there's also other downsides in this episode too, which I'm going to address. But basically, they do manage to make it in the climb up the wall. Now, they are not the only wildlings out there. In fact, there are 4 groups of 4 men who are lined up on cables climbing up the wall together. There is a landslide which ensues, and the other 3 are taken out, but our main wildlings and Turncloak do make it up the wall. There is a point, however, halfway where our long spear realizes that there's too much weight, and in a panic he cuts the rope and would send the 2 below him plummeting to our death, and that is our kissed by fire couple. But some quick thinking by John and a pickaxe to the wall manages to save them. They make it up, and there's definitely some shit that's going to be flying in between Spear and John coming up in the next episode, but for a moment we do get to enjoy Egret's dream of wanting to see the top of the world from the wall, and they share a kiss, which caps out the end of the episode with an overvoice, which I'll get to. Nice little moment in between them. I hate that this is 6 episodes too late for me to get an investment from John, which I've been looking for, but hey, something is better than nothing, I suppose. Now, let's cross over to the mysterious place where Theon Greyjoy is being held. And this scene doesn't amount to much other than a medieval version of torture, choke, puke, or hostile, or a little bit of Saw. We're playing a game of who wants to lose a pinky. And it's just more sadism which is being thrown at Theon in this episode. Now, a lot of people would call bullshit on me feeling sympathy for Theon. Now, granted, this is kind of a hell of his own making, given what he's done to Winterfell, betraying his family. But he did express himself in the episode before last, before he was brought back to the place, and I was moved by his plight, and the fact that I just don't like torture as just a shock value in a TV show, even if it's commonplace now. But the fact is that this is a sadistic game being played with Theon, which is just here to eat up time. And it further reinforces just how bad I feel for this character. And even as a reader of the story, is the fact that I don't know who this guy is torturing him, why, or what the hell is going on. Obviously, this is a guy who cannot tell the truth. And he takes enjoyment in that. He is a complete and utter fucking sociopath. And that's pretty much the duration of that. Now we move on to Harren Hall, where Lord Roose Bolton is sitting with Jaime Lannister and Brienne of Tarth. Brienne is dressed up. She's looking a little bit more like a lady now, and I have to say that even when she's still in the armor, still a very lovely woman portraying Brienne. She looks like a more kind of like an Amazon version of Tilda Swinton of Chronicles of Narnia fame. And she's just an absolutely beautiful woman. There's a problem which is set up in this. Now, Roose Bolton is also a sadistic guy in here too, but he likes telling the truth. and takes enjoyment in it. And this is kind of a point to where he relays the plan to them that he is going to send Jaime Lannister back to Castle Rock. Not Castle Rock, but King's Landing. But Brienne of Tarth is staying and being charged for aiding and abetting Catelyn Stark in helping Jaime to escape. And Jaime's not happy about that. Now, this is not a bullshit bond which is being forced. This did happen in the stories, and condensed down for television, I can still buy it. These two have been sort of uneasy allies in all this, and as people who keep their oaths and people who also are warriors, they've come to respect one another, and that's evident, even though they may not say that, and that's at least something subtle that I've been glad Game of Thrones has not been throwing out right in front of us and just saying, oh, well, here it is. So it's an interesting little scene, and I do like Jaime's plight. Now, I can understand a lot of people who felt that the scene of him confessing what he had done in the original incident that earned him the name of the Kingslayer was some bullshit, considering that he pushed a kid out of a wall, but the show is a very gray area. Now, you can't buy a lot of changes in here, but people are not simply black and white in the world, no matter how much they claim to be. And, you know, given, I will concede that the dialogue in between him and Brienne from last episode was too lengthy. It's a nice little scene, and I appreciated the subtlety of these two individuals' respect for one another. So, no telling where this could go from here. Now, let us go over to King's Landing. Two scenes in particular. Well, three scenes in general. But wait, before I get to that, I need to talk about the biggest what the fuck moment that I had in this was with Arya and her dealings with the Brotherhood of Banners. Now, the show has put out, basically, you're going to get told what you see before it happens, and then it happens, and you still can't believe it happened. Basically, what happens in this episode, and the reason why I got so upset, is that, again, I had preconceptions about this show, and there are things which did not happen in the books, and this was what really set me off, because this most certainly did not happen in the stories, even if it was outside of a point of view, because this was never brought up, is that the Brotherhood sells out Gendry to none other than the Lady in Red, Melisandre. I don't know where she came from. I don't know how she got there so fast. But the fact is that these guys are being paid off by Stannis to kind of look the other way on this small matter and continue doing their little Robin Hood thing of avenging the common man. And this kind of casts them into a bad light. What is interestingly established in this is a little bit of comparison in between Thoros and the Lady of Fire and their service to the Lord of the Light, the one true God. And Arya is on hand for this, and she's really not happy about that. However, there is something that, since Melisandre is a bit of a seer, there is a little Easter egg that is nodded to in this concerning some foreshadowing which will come up with her much later on in the stories, and it'll be a long time before we see this in the story, but if you know it, it's a nice little fan service, and I do like it. But I really felt heartbroken for Arya in this, and this is something which, even though I haven't read this, even though I've read the stories, this certainly did not happen in it, and besides my being pissed at it, for once, HBO has managed to stump both the preconceived reader and the non-readers who watch the show. And I really felt highly moved for Arya's plight, and I actually am at a loss for where this is going to go. Now, let's tackle over to King's Landing with two major scenes in particular. One extremely good, one not so good. Well, actually, there's going to be about 3 or 4 in here now that I think about it. Let's tackle the most interesting one first. The meeting of two great minds, Tywin Lannister and the Queen of Thorns, discussing in sort of a bartering over buying a new car fashion, the dealings of Olena's grandchildren being married to Tywin's children. And the main focus of this is going to be Loras and Cersei being married. Now, we've shown how well these two can hold their minds. One we absolutely hate, and one we absolutely love. And Granny is just very much the thorn, and she demonstrates that so well in dealing with Tywin. She has the majority of this battle of words down to a hand. Now, she goes and addresses the fact that her son, who is known to be gay, and she doesn't hide that, is going to be married to the most beautiful woman in the land, according to Tywin. But Olenna is not a stupid woman. She knows that besides the fact that Cersei is, unfortunately, yes, she's beautiful, but she's also got a lot of miles on her. And I'm not talking about in a sexual sense, I'm just talking about in age. And she wants a good woman for her son that can bear children. And Cersei is a MILF, but her time is kind of coming to pass a little bit. And, that brings up the quip about the fact that Loras is, in fact, a little queen. And she sits there and doesn't deny that, and Tywin's not happy. It's like, well, I don't know how you do things in High Garden, but we most certainly do not do that here. Olenna goes and fires back. Yeah, he's trying to reach out and grab the flower and get ready to pluck it, but oh no. This little rose has some thorns. Now she goes and shoots back at him that she actually goes and says, well, you have such a strong heart against this. Have you ever done anything like that when you were a boy? And he says, no, I most certainly have not. And so I'm actually happy that we find someone in here who can actually manage to get the chinks in Tywin's armor showing a little bit. And this is really good. Now she goes and fires back at him. Now if you thought that her accusing him of being gay was bad, or ever thinking that at one time, well, if he's bringing up her family shit, she goes and fires up his children's shit. Compared to the rumors about what your son and daughter do here, we most certainly do not take that. And Tywin's poker face breaks very subtly. Shortly, he can recompose himself, but you see that she's got him by the balls on that one. And just this battle of words has been the most interesting thing this episode. Probably one of the more interesting things of this episode to come. Now, there is this ideal, which there is a point brought up that he's still got the political power and the pull here in King's Landing. And there's a very veiled threat which is brought up. And she's kind of met her match, so to speak, in him. They're equal, but they both have each other in other regards. And while she had the majority of this going in her favor, unfortunately, Tywin has to take the point out of this when he gets her with something. And this was really an interesting exchange of words in between these two characters. I definitely, if I was doing a top 10 moments of this series, this meeting in between these two would certainly be it. Then we cut over to a boring scene in between Tyrion and Cersei, which does not amount to much. Basically, Tyrion continues to confront Cersei about the Kingsguard who was appointed to kill him. And basically, it's a boring scene that amounts to nothing more than just both of them realizing they're fucked by what their father has done, but Tyrion is more fucked out of the two of them, considering the circumstances that he has to marry young Sansa now. And cutting over to her briefly, there's a moment which is brought in to where Tyrion has to go and decides to take it upon himself to break the news to her. And Shay just kind of puts her foot down about a lot of this. And a lot of the news is told off screen, and we see her shedding tears about this circumstance at the end of it all. We cut away from this, and then we go to one of the tail endings of this episode, which is Varys and Peter Baelish talking in the throne room. Now, there have been instances throughout the course of this series, rare moments where these two have met and discussed what's going on, and these two seem to be playing a game about who can get who better. They have their connections, their little network. Varys with his singing birds, and Peter has his own pigeons in the kingdom who are telling them both what's going on. This seems to be unfolding like a game of chess here, and it seems these guys are doing a lot to kind of influence the things that are going on, and very much seem to illustrate that they are the men behind the power, so to speak. Now, Tywin certainly has the power behind the king because he has experience and he has cunning on his side, but these two have something much deeper going on. Now, what's interesting about this is that they go and they justify to each other why they're doing this. Not everything is given away. Now, we were kind of made to think that Littlefinger is on the short end of the stick when a lot of people are figuring out his plot to rescue Sansa. However, there is something different which unfolds in this course of the conversation. Varys justifies what he's doing as for the good of the realm. Now, when this is brought up, and it's like, we can sit here doing this all day, but what does it bring us to the end of it all? It leaves nothing but chaos, which is like a giant pit, which is just swallowing us all up. And then Varys does something that goes and tops, or actually Littlefinger goes and tops Varys with a very scary thought, and just the way that he's looking at things right now. He says that chaos is not a pit, it is a ladder up out of that pit. And as he's speaking, we see 3 different vantage points of him talking and explaining the way that certain people look at their circumstances as they're all vying to get out of the hell. This is kind of the analogy from The Dark Knight Rises that Bane was telling to Batman about people trying to climb up and clambering to get out into the sun, but it works a little bit better in this 3-minute exchange. People cling to ideas. They might cling to their vows. Certainly looking at John when they're talking about this, they'll cling to ideals or religion, which are illusions to them. People not being able to accept their circumstances, and it flashes to Sansa, who is shedding tears over the news that Tyrion has given her, and watching her dream, which is that ship sail out of port, and just kind of having, no pun intended, a bit of a stark revelation, kind of, which may be showing to sink in a little bit. They haven't done much with the character, but I think that she's kind of started to get the idea of her circumstances, and it's slipping away from her. He also says that people rely on their own power, and in a surprisingly big what the fuck moment, one of Varys' little birds, who he'd been talking to in the last couple of episodes, is a living human target. Joffrey is walking out of the room carrying the crossbow when we pull back and reveal that the girl Rose is tied up to his bed, and she has crossbows, or she has bolts all throughout her body. And he just heinously tortured her to death. I don't know what exchange was done in between the two of them, but the kid fucking killed her. And just really caught me off guard. And then we pull back to a little bit of Arya, and he's talking about people that understand their circumstances, but they're powerless at the moment to do anything. And this touches upon Arya and her situation with the Bannerhood brothers, or the Brotherhood Without Banners. And this is kind of the concluding narration to this episode, which winds up concluding with looking out over the land of Westeros. And I think kind of unintentionally the climb is, intentionally the climb is metaphor through this speech that Peter Baelish gives about the chaos of the ladder. And we see where people are clambering to get to, and sometimes people can succeed despite the ideals around them. You will certainly see this, at least for a time, they can succeed when we see Jon and Ygritte looking out finally over the wall at the land below them, and the episode ends. Overall, this episode was pretty good. It has not been as good as the past episodes over the last 4 weeks, but we did certainly have some great moments which came up out of this. and really probably one of the best resounding speeches that we've had explaining people's circumstances throughout a overlapping narration. Overall, I will rate this episode as pretty good. Not been great like the past episodes, and a lot of things which came up in here and really just caused a lot of people to have a bad itch, and just hopefully something that can pick up a little bit more come next week's episode. I have been rambling over the course of 35 minutes. Boy, I don't usually do this much talking. But this pretty much concludes my episode of Game of Thrones Season 3, Episode 6, The Climb. A lot of chaos going on in this episode, and maybe that's the point of it all. Maybe if I look back on this episode later on, I might be able to appreciate it a little bit more, but just a lot of the moments on that first viewing really do just throw you off course. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and be sure to stay tuned. Probably next weekend or two I will get to talking about the source material expectations that people have for movies. In fact, I might either go make a solo video on this, or I might just have a YouTuber's Core hangout discussing this. A lot of this will also factor into an Iron Man 3 review, which I will be doing next weekend. I'm going to go, I saw it this past weekend, but I'm going to go back and catch it next weekend with my mother, because it's kind of tradition that we do the Iron Man movies. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you made it this far through with me, I appreciate that. Please come back and check out next week's review. Also check out some fine Game of Thrones reviews from my friends, the Lady Kayla, Kyle, aka Mr. Lone Wolf, and Larry of Otaku Assemble, Melina Pendulum. Hey, go check out some of those, and leave questions and comments, and I will catch you guys next week. Valar Morgulus, my friends, and I am out. I'm done babbling, seriously. Go away now.